Hi, Day. Okay, so the conversation, I think it kind of spread all out. Feel free to bring up whatever you want, um, but I just like to do a reset. Now, maybe you've seen my video on privatizing government. My more broad use of this thought experiment is that something that I guess I would call the private interpretation of government. The fact of the matter is, you could form a private corporation that, in many respects, could be, almost identical to the government we have. The property and so on. Now, if I was the CEO of such a company, then I would be bound to try to maximize the profit for that company. This would be a really difficult thing because if I own all of the roads and people can't even get to their job, well, obviously the market would bear a pretty high price for that access. It's not a great counter argument to the idea in the sense it wouldn't be organic, but personally I think it works fine because over time people accrue vital resources at the choke points of our economy, and it's certainly possible that somebody would acquire all the roads and whatnot. So I think right away there's an issue with forming the government that way. And when you were to privatize the government or simply imagine it this way, then it's obvious that in something like roads, these kinds of infrastructure that are shared, that it needs to be more of a co-op in nature. And of course, co-ops are a totally legitimate type of private enterprise in which the customers are the same people that own the enterprise. So you could set up a co-op. So of roads, so that the people in that area would not be served by a new private road company, but would have formed their own private road company that they were a part of. There's a lot of practical issues with that, but I mean, to first order, I think it's conceivable that that would work, assuming the people, had the right to be in there. Now, another problem, though, would be that ownership would be conferred to the people at the time of privatization. What about their children? So you might have to have some sort of a constitutional organization to that co-op such that new people born, into a particular home automatically became a part of that co-op. If you do this kind of thing, you end up with something much like government, and it's not clear what there is to object to in that. And a part of what I'd like to evoke about this is that if you have two systems that function exactly the same, and one is called public and one is called private, that's just rhetoric and semantics. There is no actual difference. If it's functionally the same thing, then there is no difference. So I wonder if you can engage with that model and tell me where you find criticism in it. And I'm pretty sure you don't support such a privatized scheme. So I ask you a little bit more to suspend your disbelief and get into that point so that we can actually do the thought experiment. But criticisms on where that would go wrong are still welcome, and perhaps there are things that you would government functions currently that you would be okay with having privatized. For my own case, it would have to be all co-ops because the job of the government, the most legitimate job, is an infrastructure. So those things would have to be co-ops of some sort with joining rights for the progeny. All right, cheers.